you would get an idea that which all topics we are going to cover during this Cisco SD-WAN training. Go through the cisco.com now domain, just following the Cisco's official website to display the content that we are going to cover during this Cisco SD-WAN training. So it's not about myself, or it's not about I-MEDITA to decide that which all topics we need to cover for SD-WAN training. It's on Cisco that would tell us that which all topics we have to cover for SD-WAN training. So you go to Learn tab, there is a tab called Learn, and then go to Training and Certification, and then you can simply go for Career Certification. There is an option under Certifications, Career Certification. Go there. And then it should, if you scroll down, it should give you, like certification for all levels and technologies, that kind of option. And then under enterprise, you should have CCNP. So if you scroll down a little more, then you'd have this professional level of certification for enterprise technology. So click on Learn about CCNP Enterprise, just click there. And then if you scroll a little more, not much, then you have this tab called Exams and Training. The moment you click on Exams and Training, then it will display all the related exams and training that you can take, right, for CCNP Enterprise. So if you scroll down, so obviously you have got the core exam, but apart from that, you have some concentration exams, and one of them is SD-WAN. So that's 300415 is the exam code, and that is for implementing Cisco SD-WAN solutions, right? So that's the exam. And this is the training that we are going to cover, right? If you would like to attempt the global certification for Cisco SD-WAN, then the total cost is going to be 300 plus 18% GST if you are in India. And the total duration of this exam could be 90 minutes. And then pass-fail results are available online within 48 hours. So generally, you need to make out like around 80% to pass this exam. Although Cisco does not clarify whether you need 80% or 85% or 90% or 75%. They don't disclose that. They simply tells you that whether you have passed the exam or you have failed the exam. But this is the total duration they are providing. And also, if you look at the view exam topics, because that would give us an idea that which all topics we need to cover during this training. So now, if you look at here, so basically they are going for this version 1.2. This is what we are going to learn about, which all topics we have got for SD-WAN version 1.2 exam. So if you look at here, obviously this entire training is divided into 6 modules. You can also see that by your own, right? It is totally divided into 6 different modules. And the first module is about the architecture, like how SD-WAN is being designed, which all components are there, what are their roles and responsibilities, what are the key terminologies that we use in SD-WAN, because understanding terminologies is very important. When you work in production environment, if somebody is saying that, hey, can you perform TLOG extension? Now, if you don't understand the terminology, then you cannot perform that extension. Now, what is TLOG? What is BFD and all sort of things, right? So having the understanding of all those terminologies is very critical. So anyways, here under module 1.0, you have got the architecture of the SD-WAN. Then they're talking about the platforms and their capabilities, like the hardware platforms I'm talking about. And then they are also talking about the cloud on ramp services, right? This is something we also call Cloud Express. But usually I don't cover this topic during module 1. I cover this topic in the end of the training, because to cover this training, it is important for us to have the knowledge of the SD-WAN. If we don't have the knowledge of SD-WAN, then it will be very difficult for us to understand this technology or this Cloud Express feature. So to understand this Cloud Express or Cloud on RAM feature very well, it is important, for us to learn the SD-WAN first. But then we have got the software as service, infrastructure as service, co-location, multi-cloud, and sort of things. So that's architecture. Then we have got this module 2.0, that is controller deployment. So in Cisco SD-WAN, we have got a lot of controllers, such as vManage is there, then vSmart is there, then vBond is there. Although Cisco has already renamed them. If I go up in module 1.0, now vBond is called Validator, vManage is known as SD-WAN Manager, and vSmart is now known as SD-WAN Controller. So Cisco has already renamed those older terminologies that we used for control components or controllers names, I would say. So Cisco has already renamed the controllers. But anyways, we will learn that. But also we have to learn that where to deploy them. That is also another, important thing that we need to understand, that where to deploy the controllers. Are we going to deploy them in our own data center on-prem? Like for an example, if I have got on-prem data center, like I have my own data center, physical data center, maybe in my headquarters, and I've got some storage available there. I also have some compute resources available. So maybe I'm using either KVM or VMware ESXi or maybe vSphere for virtualization. So in that environment also I can deploy the control component. The other option which is available for us to deploy the control components is the cloud. So even in cloud we can deploy the control components. That option is also available. Like we can log in inside the AWS dashboard, and in AWS we can also deploy these control components. So basically we need to understand that way to deploy and how we take the decision. That is also equally important for us to understand, that how we take the decision whether we should deploy the controllers in cloud or maybe in on-prem. So that depends again customer to customer, that how much resources they have got in their on-prem data center. And even in many cases, you would see that customers would not have the resources available on their on-prem data center, or maybe they don't have the on-prem data centers at all. So then you would not have any option available to deploy the control components inside the on-prem data center. So the only option that you are left out with is the cloud, right? That is AWS cloud or maybe Azure cloud. So you can use either AWS or Azure to deploy your control component. So that option is also available. Although in this training, I'm going to cover the on-prem deployment. I will not be covering the cloud deployment, like how to deploy. Like I'll be covering it, but from a theory perspective. But when it comes to labs, so I'll be performing labs only for the on-prem deployment. For cloud deployment, I'll be explaining everything. I'll give you an idea that how do we deploy control components in cloud, but practically we are going to perform the on-prem deployment. Then obviously we will have to install the certificates and everything. So we must understand the CA, certificate authority, because without understanding certificate authority, we cannot really obtain the certificates. So now it is up to us whether we want to use a public CA or private CA. So you must be knowing that when it comes to public CA, then we have a couple of options such as DigiCert is there, Cisco itself is there. Then we have CAs from Google, also like GoDaddy. These all are the public CAs, right? Including Amazon or AWS, I would say. So these all are the public CAs. But also we can set up the private CA. Like I have my own server internally within the organization, like imedita.com, right? So I have a AD server, Active Directory server, which is a Windows server, which I can also leverage as a CA server, which I can make as a private CA. So it is also possible for us to use a private CA, although it is not recommended to use the private CA, especially if you want to perform zero touch provisioning. Then it becomes very difficult to perform zero touch provisioning with private CA. So that is why the recommendations will always be to use the public CA. And in fact, Cisco recommends to use Cisco itself as a public CA. But in short, we would be needing a certificate authority for issuing these certificates, because the authentication between all these different components is going to take place based on certificates only. So certificates are going to play a very critical role. In fact, in production environment, when it comes to your day-to-day work, especially for the managed services team, like who is providing managed services to your customers. As part of their day-to-day task, they might have to reinstall the certificates. They might have to renew the certificates, similar to what you do on your proxies, on your web servers, like that. Then troubleshooting control plane connectivity, like sometimes your control plane connection does not come online. And in that specific case, we will have to ensure that control connections, are coming up online. And to do so, we may have to perform troubleshooting, and that's absolutely fine. We being a network engineer responsible for Cisco, managing Cisco SD-WAN, we must be pretty well when it comes to troubleshooting, right? So we will learn that in case if control connections are not coming up, then how to perform that kind of troubleshooting, right? So we will also learn that. So that's about module 2.0. Once we are done with module 2.0, then we're going to start with module 3.0, and that is where you would start learning that how to deploy the routers. So far, we learned about the control components because whenever you talk about the Cisco SD-WAN, the very first step is to deploy your control components, to deploy your controllers. Because if your controllers are not in place, if controllers are not deployed in advance, then you cannot start working with your routers. That's not possible. We cannot start deploying the routers directly in absence of the controllers. That's not possible. So in Cisco SD-WAN, if you look at the sequence, the first step is always to deploy the control components and to make sure that all the controllers are talking to each other. The control connections must be up and running successfully, right? Then after you can start deploying the VANS routers. And that is what we will learn under module 3.0. So first we're going to learn that how to deploy the VANS routers. And there's a concept of GTP, Zero Trust Provisioning. Also, there is a concept of bootstrap. So bootstrap is useful, especially when you deploy the virtual routers in cloud, like inside AWS cloud or Azure cloud. That's where this bootstrap can be useful. Even for on-prem deployment also it can be useful, but we'll talk about that. And then how to deploy the routers in data centers or maybe at your regional hub sites. So we will have to look at that. How do we define that? Okay, this is a regional hub site. How to deploy the routers in data centers. And if you are going to perform migration, let's say if it is a greenfield environment, then you would not have many issues because in greenfield environment, you are going to build everything from scratch. But if you have got a brownfield environment where you have to upgrade from traditional network to SD-WAN, then it is going to be very difficult for you. Very, very difficult. So then you must understand that which routers you must migrate first. Whether those are data center routers or your regional hub routers or like that. Those strategies, the working on a strategy is very important. Building out your strategy before migration is very important, is very critical. And that is what we will be talking about. And then we have got how to configure the data plane devices, which means in short, we can also call them routers. So basically over here, you're going to learn that how to deploy VANS routers. And then also you have got the circuit termination and TLOC extension. So sometimes we will also have to implement the TLOC extension. Now, TLOC extension is nothing but it is an extension of the WAN facing interface. So for an example, internet circuit is terminated on one router. And now the requirement is to take that connection, that circuit from the original router to one another router as well. Like let's say your internet is terminated on router 1, but also you have got another VANS router which is router 2. Now you want to take that same internet connection from router 1 to router 2. So that's what we do by leveraging or by implementing TLOC extension. So basically you extend your TLOC. You extend your WAN facing connection from one router to another router. Obviously, there will be a concept of the dynamic tunnel because the SD-WAN tunnels will be coming up dynamically between the routers. So if anybody has worked on DMVPN, I'm not sure that how many of you have already implemented dynamic VPN, DMVPN. So usually in case of the DMVPN configuration, we will go to each and every router individually, manually, and we will be setting up those routers manually, like phase 1 configuration, phase 2 configuration, etc., and then create the tunnel interface, implement an HRP, and so, right? So a lot of configuration that needs to take place in order to implement DMVPN. But in case of the Cisco SD-WAN, you know what? The moment you onboard your control components and then after the moment you onboard your VANS routers, the SD-WAN tunnels, the IPsec tunnels between the routers will be coming up online dynamically. So you don't set up anything, you don't configure anything like phase 1, phase 2. You don't have to set up the pre-shared key. Why? Because authentication will take place not using pre-shared key, but instead it will be using the digital certificates for the authentication like PKI. And then obviously you must understand those terminologies like what is underlay, what is overlay. And this is not something new. This is not very first time that you are hearing about those terminologies. Like underlay, overlay has always been there. Some of you told me that you're working on, kind of EVPN, and then you must have heard about during the implementation of EVPN, you must have heard about the overlay and underlay. So even ACI, the overall concept of the ACI is about underlay overlay. Whoever is working on SD access, so we are using their VXLAN and then Lisp protocols, right? So that is also kind of underlay and overlay kind of stuff. Like there also we have got concept of the underlay and overlay. Even if you are setting up a GRE tunnel, or maybe you are building up a site-to-site tunnel between two sites. Even if you are building up the DMVPN, even if you are building up the MPLS network, like you are enabling MPLS in your environment. So you always, talk about the underlay connectivity and then overlay connectivity. So those are the terminologies that we need to understand, that what is underlay and what is overlay. Then we have got this OMP, which is again overlay product. In SD access, you must have heard about, like whoever worked, some of you mentioned that you are working on Cisco SDA, or you have got some experience over Cisco SDA. So in Cisco SDA, we have a concept called Lisp and VXLAN. Those two protocols are working in overlay. So here in Cisco SD-WAN, for overlay, we have a dedicated protocol, and that is called OMP, Overlay Management Protocol. So its full form itself is Overlay Management Protocol. So to build your overlay, this OMP protocol is crucial, is critical. And then configure T-locks, and then, how to validate and make the configuration changes using CLI, and of course using templates. So we will learn about the templates and also like how to make the configuration through the CLI. And that is where you would also learn that how to deploy VRRP and those traditional routing protocols. So not only you have to deploy, you have to implement the overlay routing protocol, but also you have to learn about or you have to learn that how to implement your traditional routing protocols, because traditional routing protocols are not going away. You still, even though in overlay you don't need them, because in overlay you are going to implement OMP for overlay routing, but for underlay routing and for lane side routing, for service side routing or local area network side routing, you still have to be dependent over your traditional routing protocols. So that's the thing. So you're not completely moving away from the traditional routing protocols. Traditional routing protocols are still there, and you must understand that how to get them implemented. Although I'm not going to cover like what is BGP, how does it work, and if you are
Hello?
expecting SD-WAN protocols, right, like OSP, VRRP, BGP, HERP. So we're gonna learn that how to get them implemented. So that is important for us to understand that how to get them implemented. That is more important for each one of us. Although I'll not be covering their concept, the basic concepts, So when I say basic concepts, like what is BGP, why do we use BGP, what are the port numbers used by BGP? No, I mean that's something that I'll be considering that all of you are aware with all these protocols. In SD-WAN, we're gonna learn that how to get them implemented, how to implement those protocols in SD-WAN. That's what we will be learning. But we will not be covering the routing protocol itself. Like in CCNP, we do cover that. Even in CCNP, NRC, I would say. So in NRC module, we cover all those routing protocols. Okay. Then multicast routing support in Cisco SD-WAN, because Cisco SD-WAN is also supporting the multicast routing. So I have to explain you like how it works and all that. So only description of the multicast routing is there. And we have got the configurations and policy groups, the feature profiles, and using workflows, right? So we will also learn about that. So that's about module 3.0. Upon completing module 3.0, then we have got module 4.0, which is all about the policies, and which is kind of heart of your SD-WAN technology. That's the heart of technology, because that's what will decide actually that how your topology is going to look like, whether it is going to be hub and spoke or full mesh, or which all sites are going to establish an IPsec tunnel between each other dynamically, which all sites are going to exchange their routes dynamically, right, and all that kind of information. So that will be depending upon the policies. Now we have got many different types of policies for different purposes in SD-WAN, right? So for control plane, we have got control plane policies. For data plane, we have got data plane policies. Now we can also configure end-to-end segmentation by the help of the VPNs, also known as VRF. Like on Cisco routers, we call them VRF, but in Viptela, we call it VPN. We can create the service VPN, also known as VRF. So we will learn that how to create multiple VRF, and that would also help us to perform end-to-end segmentation. And this feature is very useful, especially where you're following sort of compliances. Let's say if someone is following the PCI compliance. For an example, if you are a financial institution like banks or insurance company or etc., etc. So if you have to follow a PCI compliance, then you have to have a separate network for your guest users, for IoT, and for corporate users. And not only that, but also if you have got sort of ATMs, like PCI compliant devices will be part of a separate network. So you have to perform kind of end-to-end segmentation. So segmentation needs to take place, and that is what we can achieve in Cisco SD-WAN by using VRFs. But in Cisco SD-WAN, we don't call them VRF, we call them VPN. But it's the same thing, VPN or VRF. So that is what you would see, that how do we perform this VPN segmentation, right? And membership. And then how do we build different topologies? Like it is also doable, like for one VRF, it's full mesh, and for another VRF, you're using hub and spoke topology. And that is what will be needed even in Cisco SD-WAN deployment if you are following the PCI compliances. Then configure Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN app-aware routing, including AI-driven predictive path recommendations, right? So, so that it can analyze performance automatically using AI, and then it follow the path accordingly. Then configure direct internet access, that is also known as DIA, direct internet access. So it's like for underlay, you are going to have the internet connections across all your branches, but to access the internet, like if your lane users are accessing the internet, there will be two different ways to provide the internet connectivity for your lane use. Either you can backhaul them into your data center using overlay tunnels, and from data center using firewall, you can go and access the internet. Or you can provide a local breakout, like from a local router itself, you can go to the internet directly. So for an example, if you have got a branch one, so from branch one, you can directly move on to the internet. And that is why this SASE solution is becoming more popular nowadays. And you must have heard about Zscaler. Then you must have heard about the cloud Flare. Then you must have heard about Cisco Secure Access. Previously, it was Cisco Umbrella. Then you must have heard about Prisma Access. You must have heard about this one, Natiscope. You must have heard about all these cloud-based proxy providers. Those are the SIG provider, secure internet gateway provider, but using cloud, right? So in cloud, they have got those proxies deployed there, and then we are simply leveraging them. Because of the direct internet access, all those technologies are getting more popular. So that's about section 4.0. Once we are done with this module 4.0, then we have got this module 5.0. And under 5.0, we have got some sort of security features which are supported by Cisco SD-WAN. And that includes your application aware firewall, your IPS, your filtering, AMP, SSL proxy, and TrustSAG. Although in most cases you would be using application aware firewall feature only. That's the only feature that we use at most, right? In most cases, most customers are going to use only that feature. They don't use IPS or URL filtering. Why? Because to enable IPS or URL filtering, you would require an additional software to be installed on your routers. And to install that additional software on your routers, you would require additional CPU cores and additional memory, and that directly impacts the cost of your router. So generally, we will not be enabling these security features, and in place of them, we will be using some cloud-based proxy or secure internet gateway such as Zscaler or Cisco Umbrella. So we would also learn that how to integrate your Cisco SD-WAN with SIG providers such as Zscaler and Cisco Umbrella. So that topic is also there. So if you are using a SIG provider, then you don't need to enable any of those features. In fact, enabling application aware firewall is also not needed, but that feature is something which you can enable on Cisco routers in Cisco SD-WAN without requiring any additional resources available on your router. So better that we stick with this feature only when it comes to Cisco routers. But yeah, I mean, by installing additional software on your routers, you can also use them as an extend firewall where IPS, URL filtering, AMP, which is advanced malware protection, sort of things can be enabled. Then you have got quality of service. So obviously, we must know that how to enable quality of service and all that. And then we have got the application quality of experience, QoE. So how to deploy the quality of experience, like we can perform TCP optimization, we can implement data redundancy elimination, we can also allow packet duplication, we can also implement forward error correction fact, right? The exam firewall I already told you, so you don't really have to cover that again. Anyways, so that's module 5.0, that is security and quality of service. And finally, you have got management and operations. So that is where we will learn about troubleshooting, like how to perform troubleshooting, how to look for the information on your vManage using GUI, like how authentication is taking place, how to perform monitoring, how to generate reports, and how to perform troubleshooting. Configure authentication, do monitoring, and then reporting. What are the REST API? Now, obviously, I'm not going to make you an automation engineer here, but I would definitely let you know that which all APIs are supported by Cisco SD-WAN. That way, in future, if you have a requirement to perform sort of integration, that you can do. So I'll be talking about all the APIs supported by the Cisco SD-WAN. And then the last but not least is upgradation, like how to upgrade the SD-WAN components, be it is your routers or your control components. So if you have a plan to upgrade your control components, how you gonna plan it? How you gonna make it happen? And if you have a plan to upgrade your routers, how you gonna make it happen? So that is what we will also learn in Cisco SD-WAN. So this is what we are going to cover. So that's the entire SD-WAN training. Like this is the content that I'm going to follow to train you all over Cisco SD-WAN technology. So if anybody has got any questions around the topics that we are going to cover, in fact, we can also download this in PDF, right? And then you can simply go through it, right? So it's the same thing. It's just that now I have downloaded the PDF file. So this is the content that we are going to cover during this training, and this is what you can expect out of this training. So if anybody has any questions, concerns around it, that which all topics we are going to cover, you are free to ask all those questions now.
Yeah, Saurav, what is the role of multicast in SD-WAN?
It's a multicast routing, like similar
Okay,
to traditional routing. So
okay,
if you have to enable multicast routing traditionally, then you have to implement rendezvous point, and then you have to enable PIM, sparse mode, and all that kind of thing, right? And to advertise your rendezvous point, you have BSR, auto RP, or maybe you can go for static RP. So the concept is same, multicast routing, but how do we get that feature enabled in Cisco SD-WAN, and how does it work, especially in Cisco SD-WAN? Because
yes, yes, yes. Oh,
traffic is going to travel over the IPsec tunnels.
oh, so okay. Because in data center technology, there is a multicast also only with the broadcast traffic. Bump traffic is always mapped with the multicast. So that's why I am asking these questions.
Mm.
Is there any kind of bump traffic? How the handle is the bump
No,
traffic in
no, no,
SD-WAN?
no, no, no. We don't allow
Okay,
anyone to send the bump traffic.
okay.
So that's that. And apart from this, I would also request you all to make these sessions more interactive as much as possible by participating actively. If there is no background noise, feel free to keep yourself unmuted all the time. No problem with that. But if there is a background noise, then you will have to ensure that you keep yourself on mute. And whenever you have got any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Even though if there is a background noise, still you are free to ask questions. I can bear, those background noises momentarily while asking the questions, but you can't sit unmuted all the time if there is a background noise. But feel free to ask questions and discuss as much as you can, right? I would really encourage everyone, each one of you, to keep asking questions, to keep discussing with me, so that your doubts are clear, and also you get what you are.
No, I'm asking the course you mentioned just now, and the course we have CCIE Enterprise SD-WAN. So is it same or is it different?
Are you talking about the cost?
Not the cost, the content, the content for.
The point is that if you talk about the topics that we are going to cover for SD-WAN, we have a dedicated exam here. That is what we are covering. Now, if you talk about the CCIE, even you have less topics there. So if I directly go for CCIE now, so for an example, if I go with CCIE, let me go back a little here, enterprise, and then let's say expert level. And for becoming CCIE, you will have to go through your core exam as well as your lab examination. So if you look for the lab examination, like if you go to exams and trainings, So obviously, first you have to pass the core exam. In core exam, you have maximum 2 or 3 topics from SD-WAN. But even if you look at the lab examination, and if you look at the exam details for lab exam, so this is under software-defined infrastructure, right? So if you look at the SD-WAN, these are the only topics that you have to cover. This is what I've discussed with you, right? In fact, as part of the training that we are going to cover, you are going to cover more than what they are looking at CCI level. Make sense?
Great. Yeah. Yeah. That means we are covering more than expected. Then
Yeah.
that's good,
So
right?
once you cover this entire training of SD-WAN, then which means that you have covered all the topics. In fact, more than that, whichever topics you have in CCI exam.
And you also mentioned about this certificate authority. You just during the this covering.
Yeah, similar to
So
like if you are using Cisco.com here, right? It's very similar. So you see that it is secure, right? And you're using
no, my question is,
certificates. Hold,
my
hold on.
question is, okay.
Mhm. Just give me a sec, right? So I know that around certificates, many of you have a lot of questions and doubts as well, and it is very difficult to understand all those things, you know. But I would encourage each one of you to go through, accessing website, any website which is secure, like Cisco.com, right? It says connection secure, and then it says certificate is valid. Go to that certificate and look at this certificate, and then try to learn by your own that how a secure connection is getting established between your laptop and this Cisco web server. Okay, at the end of the day, you are downloading this Cisco website from Cisco web server. You're downloading this website from a web server. So once you understand that how certificate is playing its role here in between your laptop and the Cisco web server, then you would be able to understand it fully then. Now you are free to ask questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like you just showcased here, the earlier the public certificates had validity of like a year or so, right?
Correct.
Now going forward, the public certificate authority, they are reducing the validity from 1 year to now 6 months, and then 3 months, and then maybe 50 I think 30 days. So means a lot of certificate renewal and more frequent of it. And if you have so many certificates, then you keep on renewing those certificates very frequently. So, how is that going to be covered if you have so many certificates on so many devices?
So that's
I know
what
you are.
I told you. If you remember, I myself brought this topic when I was giving you the introduction about the certificate things. So I told you that as part of your day-to-day activity in managed services, right? So if you are part of the managed services team, then as part of your day-to-day activity, this is one of the important tasks that you will have to take care of, and that is the renewal of the certificates. So the SSL certificates will have to be renewed a day-to-day basis. So like for an example, for one of the router, the certificate is going to get expired in next 1 week. Then after 1 week, you saw that another, certificate is going to get expired. So you will have to renew that. So usually when we renew, we don't obtain certificate for less than 1 year. Bare minimum in Cisco SD-WAN, you would see that we are asking CA to provide us the certificate which is valid at least for 1 year, not for 15 days or 3 months or so. So at least for 1 year. And in fact, I have seen people, looking for the certificates for 3 years as well. Let's say you purchased a Cisco SD-WAN solution. Now, after buying the Cisco SD-WAN solution, you know that you are going to use Cisco SD-WAN solution at least for next 3 years. If you have make up your mind that you will be using Cisco SD-WAN solution for next 3 years, better that in advance you ask your CA to provide the certificate for 3 years, not just for 1 year, so that you don't have to renew them. But generally, as per the industry recommendations, we keep it 1 year. Like we are obtaining certificates for a year, and then after 1 year or after every year, we will be refreshing all those certificates or renewing those certificates. So certificate renewal is a key process, especially when it comes to the managed services provider. So if you are working in a managed services team, then it will be part of your day-to-day activity, similar to like F5 load balancers or any proxy. Like generally on proxies, for each application you will have to, especially on reverse proxies, right? For generally for each and every application you will require a certificate. And then you have to get them renewed after every year. Or maybe if you got the certificate for 2 years, then you will have to get it renewed for, after 2 years then. So that's that.
Sorry to cut you, but what the thing is, I understand that a year or 2 year thing is there, but we have control over validity of this certificate if we have a private CA, right? Like an internal certificate authority. But going forward, like DCert or VeriSign or any of these public certificate authorities, they are moving from one. They are not allowing us or any client to have a 1 year validity of any public certificate. They are, even if you see this Cisco.com certificate which you just showcased here, they have reduced their validity period from 1 year to 6 months, and going forward it will be reduced to 3 months. So my question was, earlier it was fine. We had 1 year of validity, we had plenty of time. Now going forward, when it will be reduced, the validity period of those certificates will be reduced. So is there any way we can deal with this less validity period certificate?
Then you will have to renew it, right? The only option
It's
you have out where you will.
more of human efforts. You're saying,
No, you
right?
can also automate that.
How? Using some public
No, I mean,
tool?
see, there are multiple ways to automate it. You can create a Python script and then use REST API so that it triggers after, let's say, every 80 days, right? And then it gets renewed your certificate automatically. Make sense?
Uh, yeah. So, but because the thing is, it's not. I can do that. I can create a sort of a script, but the time when that certificate authority will issue that certificate, that's the crucial thing, because you don't
That is
know that.
also that also can be taken care by the AI integration. Like you can integrate your Cisco SD-WAN with let's say Cloud, and then you can simply do one thing after the integration, that you go and ask Cloud that tell me all the routers, give me the list of all routers where the certificate is going to get expired in next 1 week. Then it will give you the list of all those routers, and then also give another prompt to your AI Cloud that can you generate the CSR for all of these routers for renewing the certificate. So you can also play around the AI. So there are many solutions. This is what I'm trying to say. But now the question is that how do you integrate your Cisco SD-WAN with with AI Cloud?
Yes.
That is another question, right? But that solution is already there in the market now. So I know that what you are talking about, you want to simplify your solution. But for now, the only solution that you are left out, or the only way that you have, is to perform manual efforts and do it manually. Other than that, as I told you, either you can have a script in place which can trigger after every maybe you can trigger that script weekly so that it can give you the list of routers which are going where the certificate is going to get expired in next a week or so, and then you do it manually, right? Because monitoring is very important. Identifying that at which all routers the certificate is going to get expired during next 1 week is very critical, is very important. So your monitoring team should be enough capable to identify that. And post that, you will have to perform the manual efforts for renewing the certificates. As I told you,
Yeah, we do have.
perform.
We do. Mhm.
If you don't want to perform your efforts manually, then the other solution is the AI. Integrate your SD-WAN with generative AI, whether it is Gemini or
No,
Claude.
what I'm saying is that we do already have this kind of script where I would say in F5, right? We have these scripts which check for expiring certificates in next 30 days. It just creates a list of certificates which are going to expire in 30 days, and then even send that list of through email. But we also need to consider that these are some pure enterprise networks which do not allow these secured F5s or network devices to talk or communicate with any external entity over the internet. So security needs to be considered here. So this becomes a very challenging task without compromising the security to get things automated. I understand till the CSR creation, till the notification, it is
So
easy.
how if
Internal network.
if your network is totally isolated network and doesn't have access to the internet at all, And if you have to do it manually, then you don't have any other option other than having a jump host where your email ID is already there. And, using email, exchange your CSR and then get it signed and then get your certificate back into your system and then get it uploaded. So that's the only way. You can't say that, okay, I mean, I know that it's very difficult task. It's a time consuming process, but that's the only way to move forward.
Okay.
So basically, Vikas, there is no single solution that I can tell you. There are multiple ways to do it. But again, depending upon what are the circumstances that you are facing. Because rules and regulations across all the organizations will be different. It is not going to be same. Like if you change your job tomorrow, then in different organization, you would have a different type of environment. So you would face different challenges there. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that you have got plenty options available in the market to fix this certificate related issues. But again, you will have to look at that which options are suitable for your environment, which are not. Like as you mentioned that you don't provide like kind of internet connectivity to your internal systems completely, right? You don't provide it. You have security regulations. So obviously, then the only option you are left out with that first generate CSR manually and then take it out somehow, maybe using email or using jump host or whatsoever. You're using some sort of file server. So there are multiple ways. Again, I mean, there is nothing to do with SD-WAN training with that kind of stuff. That's your understanding that how you tackle with that situation and how you transfer those files from one system to another system and then get it uploaded and make it work. So, that there are tricks that you always use in production environment in such scenarios. Anyways, I was talking about the certificate. So you must be knowing that when it comes to certificate, obviously we have a component called root certificate. Then we also have a terminology called device certificate or identity certificate. So I would highly encourage each one of you to start reading about the certificates from today itself. Although I'm not covering certificate today, I'll be covering them later. But all of you are requested, like I would highly encourage each one of you to go through the certificates, like what are the certificates, what is certificate authority, how many different types of certificates we have got, like we have got root certificate, we have got identity certificate, then we have got intermediate certificate, what is root cert chain, right? We also have a concept called certificate chain. So what is called, I mean, what is the meaning of the certificate chain? So you should be aware with those terminologies. So start reading about them, and you are already using those certificates. It's not like you're not using or you are pretty much new for all these terminologies, because we are always using certificates everywhere. Like as I gave you this example, if you are even accessing the cisco.com in this browser, you could see that it says that connection is secure. If connection is secure, then how it is secure, how it got secure, right? So it says certificate is valid. So basically connection is secure because we used a digital certificate to make it secure. Now it says certificate is valid, right? Now this is the certificate that we got from application server. So basically from Cisco application server, I got this certificate. Now if I look at the details, so it clearly says that this is the certificate which I got from cisco.com. And then this certificate was issued by this intermediate CA, which is Hydrant ID Server CA01. And then this certificate for intermediate CA was issued by this root certificate. So basically here I have got a identity certificate. Then I have got a root certificate from intermediate CA. And then also a certificate from root CA server. So you should be aware with these terminologies. Start reading about them from now only. I'm not saying that you should spend whole day, but at least start spending like 10 to 15 days every day about the certificate so that you are more comfortable with the certificate. Because I know that similar to Vikas was trying to ask the questions, you all are going to face the same type of challenge in production environment while managing the SD-WAN for any customer. Even though if you have to renew the certificates in a year, still you have to renew it, right? That's a challenge that you will have to face. Each one of you would face while working on SD-WAN technology for any customer on any project. Anyways, coming back to this content, if anybody has any other question, any additional question around this content, do let me know. Otherwise, I have covered like the content.
Just to be clear, when you talking about the certificates, I mean, I don't manage the SD-WAN itself, but I do have I can spin up a new edge router, and normally what we do is just provide information to the Cisco website, where you just provide the chassis ID and the serial number, and automatically generates those certificates for me. I mean, I'm speaking like I don't manage the whole SD-WAN, but there's something that I'm missing between the conversation you guys have.
So, in short, like if you are talking about the uses of the certificates in Cisco SD-WAN technology, right? So I'll just open up my topology here quickly, which I'll be using, by the way. So this is kind of an example which okay, let me just close this out and then I'll be opening up the SD-WAN weekend. Let's assume that this is our topology for SD-WAN, right? So this topology has got some control components there. I've got control components like vManage, vSmart, vBond, and then I've got managed routers at different locations. So the
Yeah.
all control components will have to authenticate each other, and that would take place based on the certificates only. And similarly, your managed router will have to authenticate with each one of these control components, and that would also take place based on the certificates only, digital certificates. Now, when you said that it will be providing its serial number, the chassis number, yes, you are right. So basically, primarily, the certificate is responsible to carry your chassis number and serial number so that authentication can take place. You're absolutely right. But all that information will be carried by your certificates only. Okay. Now you would be needing a CA server, right? That would be responsible for issuing the certificates for any of your control component or maybe for any of your managed router. Now CA can be either private or a public. It's up to you that whether you want to use a public CA or a private CA. But at the end of the day, while providing certificate to your to any of your components, whether it is a managed router or a control component, you have to add a chassis number and a serial number, the serial number of the device and the chassis number. Okay, so that is the main job of the certificate. In fact, it will also carry your organization name, because it will
Yeah.
also have to ensure that the device belongs to the same organization before allowing it for the successful authentication, right? Or before successful authentication, it will validate if device belongs to the same organization. So that will also be carried by the certificate itself. So yes, Alex, you're right that mainly, the primary job of the certificate would be to carry the device's serial number and chassis number, and of course the org name. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just I haven't been in that on the back end of SD-WAN managing the certificates, and I think that's a different team to manage all the certificates, especially when you're have your be
So,
managed and be smart, be bond in a virtualized environment. Or,
so even if you look at here, the certificates, like view certificates, that would also carry kind of like FQDN here, right? It is also carrying the FQDN here. You could see that. And also it is carrying what? The serial number. So even in a normal way, like when you are accessing a normal website in a secure fashion, the serial number is also there. But it also validates a few more things like FQDN and all that kind of thing that you're trying to access here, right? But I don't want to go into that much detail. All I wanted to tell you that you should be knowing that there is a certificate called identity certificate. And then we have got a certificate chain where you have got a certificate from intermediate CA as well as the root CA, right? So that's the only objective to understand from when it comes to the certificates. I don't really have to move into much deeper, but we should know that what is the role of the certificate here. So mainly the purpose of the certificate is going to have the authentication completed between the different components in Cisco SD-WAN.
okay, sounds good.
Yep. So that's that. So I've covered the content that we are going to cover. This is the topology that I'll be using here throughout this training, right? As of now, right? In future, it is highly possible that I might modify it as well, considering the new topics that the Cisco has added in their content now. Earlier, the content was not same. The content was changed in recent time. So I might have to change this topology a little. But initially, I'm gonna cover, the Cisco SD-WAN with the gold star image only, the recommended image by Cisco. But all the features which are listed in your content are not supported by that gold star image as of today. So I might have to change either topology, or maybe I might have to change the operating system OS version of my control components as well as my managed routers, right? So in this topology, if you look at, I've got data center, obviously, right? I have this data center where I have a CS router, which is running with IOS XE, and I have got control components, and then I've got remote site like site 1, then site 2, and then site 3. So I've got like 3 remote branches and 1 data center. So we will play around it, like how to establish connectivity between remote sites and data center, and then of course between remote sites itself, between remote branches. Then we can also convert it into full mesh and hub and spoke. So by default, it is going to be full mesh, but then we can convert our connectivity into hub and spoke. Like data center should be able to talk to all your branches, but traffic should not be going from one branch to another branch. So that's kind of hub and spoke topology. So we will see that how do we implement this hub and spoke topology and then kind of full mesh. And obviously, this topology is built using EVENG, and you would have access to this topology. All of you would have access to this topology, right? And it will be very difficult to build this topology on your local machines. Like you can try to build this topology on your local machines as well. If anybody is having a server at home, which has at least 64 GB of memory, and then 16 CPU cores, and then around 1 TB of storage, then you can easily build this topology on your server. But it's very difficult to have that many resources at home, especially on your laptop. So do not even try to build this SD-WAN topology on your laptop, because it's very, very difficult to build the topology locally. So try to access the lab from our system. So to access the labs from our system, obviously you would require Cisco AnyConnect VPN, secure client VPN, to be installed on your laptop. So if you are using, let's say, corporate laptops only, where you cannot install any software, then use your desktop or personal thing, personal laptop or desktop, whatever you have got, and then install the secure client there. You would get all the instructions and all the recommendations over an email, and then post that you can start accessing our labs. Without installing VPN client on your machine, you would not be able to access our labs, because our labs are not available openly over the internet. So that is something that you should all keep in your mind. So even obviously I'm in office now, so I don't really have to connect myself with the VPN. But if I'm, let's say working from home, I also have to use the secure client, right? I also have to use the secure client. So we will provide you the IP address and the port number through which you can connect to our secure client, and then after you can have access to these labs. Okay.
In how much time are we? In how much time are we expected to? In how much time are we expected to receive these lab access?
So again, that would be communicated to you over an email, but generally this is for just for 4 hours in a day. And then you can schedule your lab for a week or maybe for 2 weeks initially, and then later you can extend your time based on your requirements, right? But you would get a slot options. Okay, like for an example, usually here in I-MEDITA, what we do is we have divided 24 hours into 6 different slots, like 12 to 4, 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., 8 p.m. to 12 a.m., like that. Okay. Now you would have to pick any of those slots. And accordingly, your credentials will be provisioned. You would be allowed to access labs during the time slot only. For 1 week, for 2 weeks, it's up to you. But initially, we will provision the lab credentials for 2 weeks. Later, if you come back and say that, okay, I need lab access for another 2 weeks, we will allow you for another 2 weeks. And why do we do that? Because sometimes people will come and say that, okay, I want to have access, to the labs for 1 month or 2 months, right? and we provision their account, and then later they access the labs for 1 day or 2 days or maybe 3 days, and then after they stop accessing it, they stop working on it. That is why we usually provide access to you guys for a week or 2 weeks, and later if you are still working on your labs, you come back to us and ask for extension. Make sense? Does that make sense now, Vikas?
Yeah, but can we build this? I understand we cannot build this lab on the laptop, but can we build this
This is what
lab on? No, my question is, can we build this lab on cloud? Any Sasta cloud?
Cloud is possible, but you would not be able to bear that many charges in cloud. As I told you, imagine that in cloud, how much billing you would get for 64 GB RAM and then 16 CPU core and then so and so. If you are using a cloud
If not,
tenant from your organization and you are not responsible to pay for that, then yes, you can build in cloud as well.
I mean, not the expensive one. Maybe some more economic one. Maybe
It's up to you, but usually we do not support, like I-MEDITA does not support to build these labs in cloud, like EVNG deployment in cloud. We can give you the image for EVNG and then you can deploy it in cloud. Because I've seen, like in past, we have experienced this. It was not fruitful. It was not really useful to deploy the EVNG in cloud, especially for Cisco SD-WAN. It has worked great for, let's say, for a smaller topology where you are just practicing for routing and switching, but not for SD-WAN.
what challenge was faced? Was it not
The
resource?
resources crunch. Simple resources crunch. Because to deploy a single vManage, you require like bare minimum 4 CPU cores and then 32 GB of memory and then 250 GB of storage. That is just for one vManage. And then you can think of other devices as well, that for each component, you would at least allocate one CPU core. Anyways, so coming back to this topology, you could see that I'm using two different transports here in this topology, kind of internet and MPLS. So this is what we will be using. Now let's talk about the history of the Cisco SD-WAN a little bit. So when we talk about the history, so I would say that in 2013, I first started, hearing about the SDN technology, or I would say 2012. I can't really recall exactly, but that is where I started hearing about this terminology called SDN, software-defined networking. Now, this software-defined networking is also known as controller-based networking. Controller-based networking. So initially, there was no solution like SD-WAN provided by Cisco. Although in industry around 2014, some vendors like CloudGenix, then VeloCloud, then your Silver Peak, they were at peak, right? A lot of customers were adopting their SD-WAN solution. Lot of customer, and one of them was Viptela. So a lot of customers were adopting their solution because that was providing a lot of value for money for our customers. But none of the big giants like Cisco, Juniper, HP, and you can take any name. They never had any kind of like this type of solution, SD-WAN. They were still using the traditional routing. In Cisco, we had a solution that is called I-WAN, but that was a totally failed product. That was completely failed. They had this solution probably in year of 2012. Launched this I-WAN in 2012 or 2013, somewhere around that only. I can't really recall that exact year, but somewhere during that period of time, they came up with I-WAN technology, but that was a failed product. But anyways, all these vendors were getting popular day by day, and they were replacing traditional WAN with SD-WAN. And then later, all these vendors realized that they will not be able to survive, especially for WAN technology, if they don't come up with similar type of solution. And that is where Cisco acquired Viptela in 2017. So Viptela was an independent organization, was an independent company that later got acquired by Cisco. And that's how Cisco SD-WAN came up, or Cisco SD-WAN came into the picture. But basically, it was Viptela that got acquired by Cisco in 2017, and that's where it became Cisco SD-WAN. So now we call it Cisco SD-WAN, but originally it comes from Viptela. And that is why, since it was a Viptela SD-WAN, so they started all their component names with V, such as vManage, vSmart, vBond, because of the Viptela, right? The company name was Viptela. And even today, lot of engineers still call it Viptela SD-WAN. They don't call it Cisco SD-WAN. They still call it Viptela SD-WAN. And there is a reason behind calling it Viptela SD-WAN, because when it comes to Cisco SD-WAN or the SD-WAN technology, Cisco is giving you two different types of SD-WAN solutions. One is called Meraki SD-WAN and the other one is Viptela SD-WAN. So we are going to learn about the Viptela SD-WAN, by the way. That is part of our content. Only Viptela SD-WAN. They also call it Cisco SD-WAN. Meraki SD-WAN is something that we will not be covering during this training, but that is also another solution provided by Cisco, because Cisco also acquired Meraki. Initially, Meraki was a different organization, right? But then later Cisco acquired Meraki, and even the Meraki solution became the Cisco solution. Although they still have the different website and everything for Meraki. But now you must have heard that using Meraki dashboard, we can also manage the Catalyst switches. Like 9K series of switches can easily get managed from the Meraki dashboard. So they are also, like Cisco is making a lot of changes into the Meraki dashboard as well. And they are adding more and more features to the Meraki dashboard. And the idea behind that is that if there are small customers and customers are not really opting for the Catalyst Center and building up the SDA, then better that we get them onto the Meraki dashboard and manage all their switches from Meraki dashboard itself, which is a cloud-based controller, by the way. So that is what you should all know. Yes.
Yes. So between Meraki and Viptela, there is a partial differences in their technology, or completely
It's a totally different technology. There is no compatibility, interoperability, nothing like that. They have got different device, different equipment. They have got different controller. They have got different technology for overlay and underlay. So basically, Meraki is a very basic SD-WAN solution. Very basic.
Okay.
And in other words, I can call it. Cisco will obviously not say it on public forum, but I can say it at least that for poor customers, it's Meraki SD-WAN, and for rich customers, it's Cisco SD-WAN. So who can spend more money, they should go for the Cisco SD-WAN. And if, customer is really having a limited budget for IT, then they should go for the Meraki SD-WAN. Meraki SD-WAN has got limited features as compared to the Cisco Viptela SD-WAN. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So I hope that you got a little bit history here, that until 2017, Viptela was a independent company, right? And their solution, their SD-WAN solution was popular among customers. And in 2017, then it got acquired by Cisco. So all the technologies belongs to Viptela, is now part of Cisco. So like if you talk about the protocol OMP, earlier we used to call it Viptela proprietary protocol. But now we call it Cisco proprietary. Why? Because the proprietorship was shifted from Viptela to Cisco now. Why? Because Cisco acquired that company. So I hope that everybody understood this, that this Viptela SD-WAN or Cisco SD-WAN was originally not designed and created by Cisco itself. No. Originally, it was designed and created by Viptela, and then later in 2017, Cisco acquired Viptela, and that is how the history got started. The process got started. And then later on, like after 2017, a lot of changes have been made since then. A lot of changes. Like nowadays, Cisco has even stopped selling Viptela routers. They don't sell Viptela routers. The only option you are left with is Cisco router. So you can buy Cisco router, but on Cisco routers, you can still run Viptela operating system. That option is still available. So on Cisco routers, instead of running ISXE, you can use Viptela operating system. So that option is still out there. But my point is that Cisco slowly, gradually moved away from Viptela. How? Like earlier, they had controller name as vManage, vSmart, vBond, like everything started with V. V indicates Viptela. But now they have also renamed them. And in fact, Cisco is now calling it Catalyst SD-WAN solution. They call it now Catalyst SD-WAN solution. And then vManage is known as SD-WAN manager. vSmart is SD-WAN controller, and vMod is SD-WAN validator. So they have also renamed all these controllers' name. So basically, Cisco is trying to come out from that Viptela thing, because everybody still calls it Viptela SD-WAN, and Cisco does not want anyone to call it Viptela SD-WAN. So anyways, that's part of the history. Now, the another question would be that why SDN? I'm not talking about the SD-WAN. I'm talking about overall terminology SDN, software-defined networking. Why? Why was it needed? And that is a question that we all should ask ourselves. Although I'm not going to talk about this today, because tomorrow it will take time for me to complete this topic, right? So I'll not cover it today. But my point is that we all should ask this question to ourselves, that why SDN? So obviously we must have faced some challenges with traditional routing and switching, with traditional data centers. We must have faced a lot of challenges. And to fix those challenges only, this controller-based networking came into the picture. Like, I'll give you a small example. I hope everyone must have heard about the wireless technology. So in wireless, the wireless LAN controller, like if I talk about the Cisco wireless, right? So they have a product called WLC, wireless LAN controller. So it's a controller, centralized controller, that from there you can manage your APs. So like if you have got 100 APs, so you have got two ways. Either you manage all your access points locally, independently, individually. Like you go to each and every AP and manage them. And what if you have got 1000 APs? Would you manage all of them independently? Like you can manage. It's not like you cannot manage them independently. You can manage them. But point is, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So the other way around is to manage all your APs from a centralized location. And for that, we had this controller, wireless LAN controller. And it became super easy because we can manage all our APs from that centralized location. So it made our job easier. We can roll out our changes frequently, quickly, with reliability. So that's what controller has done for you. A similar type of thing, the controller based networking will do for us. Either we do networking manually by configuring all routers and switches manually, like you go to each and every router and then make your changes. That's doable. It's not like it's not doable. So I'll explain you that tomorrow, that how we could really or how we really used to perform routing and switching in during past decade, I would say. Now, obviously, most of customers have already migrated from traditional to the SD-WAN, or maybe from traditional switching to the kind of SDA thing when it comes to Cisco. But in short, the controller-based networking got popular. And again, this is done by the developers only. Developers made our job easier by introducing controller-based networking. Now, obviously, you can think of another way as well, like that is also helping organizations to reduce their cost as well. Like cost cutting is also taking place because they don't require that many resources anymore. But you can also think in another way, that now organization, if had 100 engineers, and if we don't require that many engineers to support one customer, then we can leverage those engineers for other accounts, for other customers. And in short, that would affect the overall revenue of the organization, the profits of the organizations, the margins will get improved. So I mean, it's up to you, like how you want to interpret all those things. But coming back to technology things, either you configure all your devices manually, that's the way, and that's something that has always been there, that we went to all routers independently, all switches independently, make the configuration across all the devices manually. Or other way around is to use a controller, which is made by a software, and using that controller, make all your changes. Using that controller only, make your changes from a centralized controller. Like if I'm making changes, for an example, if I have, let's say this is router number 1, this is router number 2, 3, router number 4, router number 5, and router number... Those, all of them are WAN-facing routers, let's say. Those are my WAN-facing routers. So you have got multiple choices. Either you make the configuration changes on all routers manually by logging onto each router individually, or you have a controller, and from that controller, push your changes across all routers at the same time. Like you can manage all of them from this centralized location. I would leave this decision on you, that which one is better for you, which solution is more efficient for you, which solution is more helpful for you. I'll leave this decision on to you. You can take the decision by your own. But I'll be talking more about it tomorrow, like how we used to perform networking traditionally. And not only that, but also I'll speak about the challenges as well, like what all sort of challenges we faced with traditional networking, because that is more important for us to understand those challenges. Because if we don't understand the challenges, then it will not be easier for us to understand the real benefits of SDN, software-defined networking. So that is why I told you, like, it will take little more time for us, but yes, we'll do that tomorrow. We'll talk more about the traditional networking and about its challenges.
So in this type of topology, Saurabh, what if this single controller, which is managing and centralized, goes down?
No, I mean, it doesn't go down.
Is it? I mean, is it downproof or something like?
It doesn't go down that way. It's easier to say that because it just takes one. It takes one sentence if that goes down, but it doesn't go down in that way. See, there are two ways.
We see things going down. Like that's why the engineers are.
No, we don't see. We don't see that. Maybe you're not using Cisco SD-WAN. And if you are using Cisco SD-WAN, and if there is a single point of failure, then I would call it a faulty design, right? So there are always solutions to eliminate the single point of failures. But yes, if you have a centralized controller, then there will always be a small risk. Like for an example, if you made some changes and that affected all your sites, and somehow by mistake someone made some unnecessary changes, or which maybe the type of changes that someone made accidentally that led deletion of the entire VRF across all the branches, then I'm helpless. I'm totally helpless. I can't really do much with that. Yeah, that's a negative side of it. But then, being an engineer, what is our roles and responsibilities? We also have to understand that. So obviously, when you are doing everything from a single place, that would also give you some extra power. And there can be some misuse of that extra power as well. So obviously, there will be some cases where if something happens, everything might go down. But you will have to look at the positive side, negative side also, so that you don't do that in your production environment. But there are more positives than negatives. And that is why this technology, SD-WAN, SDA, ACI, or I would call it SDN, software-defined networking, is widely adopted by the customers. Why? Because it has more positives than negatives. There is no technology in the world which don't have negatives. Obviously, each technology comes with positive, but also with negatives. So when you talk about the SDN, software-defined networking, or controller-based networking, where you have got a centralized controller managing everything from there, it has more positives than negatives. So now it is up to us that how we take it. So we'll talk about that as well, that how to design your Cisco SD-WAN in a way so that there are no complete outages occurs in your environment. In Cisco, it is possible to avoid complete outages. There are other SD-WAN vendors where it is impossible to avoid those complete outages in some cases. But Cisco gives you that kind of luxury that you can always avoid complete outages by taking some steps, by modifying the design. Or even I would say in Cisco, if all your control components goes down, all of your control components, still your connectivity between remote sites and data center will persist if it was already there. Yes, new connections will not be established. New connectivity will not be formed. But whatever was existed would keep working. So when you say complete outage, it doesn't actually happen in case of the Cisco, a complete outage. But anyways, we'll talk more about it. So first, we'll talk about the traditional networking, and then we'll talk about this SDN thing, and that we will do tomorrow. If anybody has any more questions, do let me know. If not, then yeah, I'm done for today, and let's meet tomorrow.